Here's my begrudging review of Superman. 10 reasons it was awesome or sucked. You'll have to finish watching in order to find out. Number 10, I already predicted it would fail. Doesn't matter whether I liked it or not because I'm out of touch. But this is a case of reboot fatigue, not comic fatigue. Or I guess as they call it, superhero fatigue. Spoke to a friend of mine 2 weeks ago and I said, we were talking about Fantastic Four and Superman, and I says, I can tell you already which one's going to do well and which one isn't going to. Fantastic Four is going to do fine, and Superman's going to fail. This movie reminded me of X-Men 3: The Last Stand, which I saw in the theaters, and at the time, I went straight home, and at the time on the IMDb, they used to have message boards, and I was going on about how it was such a terrible movie, and everybody was saying how great it was. Or like the ride, what was it? The Force Awakens, where like I was like, what the hell was that? But it was like I'm on a different planet. Everybody else is saying how great it was. And I said to them all, you know what? Give this 10 years and you're not going to be saying how great this movie was. Now, I don't know how many millions of dollars this movie's going to make, if it's going to be a commercial success, but X-Men 3: The Last Stand was the most successful financially of all of the X-Men movies, but now it's the most hated. And same with The Force Awakens. It broke records and everything, right? But now how is it remembered? Number 2, I hate I hate all of James Gunn's comic book movies. I'm probably out of touch with what most people like, but I hated Guardians of the Galaxy. I hated all 3 of them. I hate the way he puts pop music into those 3 movies. I hate the way there's never anything at stake because everything's just so comedic all the time, which of course James Gunn did again here. And I think I've seen all of his movies. I think his first movie was Slither, which he did with Troma. And then he did a movie called Super with Rainn Wilson, which I actually liked that movie. But it was still pretty creepy. Creepy in that his indulgence in violence. He loves super violence. And then he likes to laugh about it. Luckily, he didn't do too much of that in this movie. But I generally find his sense of humor to be very stupid. It's like I always say about sarcasm. Just because you say something sarcastically doesn't make you smart. Right? There's a smart sarcastic thing to say, and there's a stupid sarcastic thing to say. So his humor is, I find it stupid. Coincidentally, not only did he make a movie called Super, which had nothing to do with Superman, he also made a movie called Brightburn. He wrote it in 2019, which is about what would have happened if there was a Superman who was inherently evil, and it was kind of like a horror movie. And I thought that was very good. It was serious. I wish James Gunn would just maybe sometimes stick to being serious, but in this case, no, he wasn't serious with this Superman movie. The problem with having jokes all the time is that you never feel like there's any stakes. And that was the case with Guardians of the Galaxy. It's just I'm just watching something where nothing matters at all. And I fear that James Gunn has had a very negative influence on the MCU, such as Thor Ragnarok, where the MCU now thinks that they can just make funny jokes all the time instead of being serious, and play music all the time, play pop music. No, the next reason is that I'm a 47-year-old. So, Superman was the original 1977, I think it was, Superman, was my childhood hero. And it stands as maybe my favorite movie of all time for nostalgic reasons. So, it's going to be impossible to please me. When Bryan Singer made his Superman Returns movie, I was hyped. I was sitting in the theater and I was just, shaking with excitement. I was just so happy. This is going to be the greatest thing ever. And I thought it was fine, right? But then that got canceled, and then they bring in Henry Cavill, and then I got all excited about Henry Cavill. And, regardless of whether the movies were good or not, I liked him as Superman. I wanted him to be Superman. And then they're like, okay, no, now we're canceling him. And it's like, I'm 47. I don't even have the excitement that I once had. And you keep recasting this guy. Snyder, he didn't have a Fortress of Solitude. He had some stupid thing about the way Krypton was portrayed was very bad, very poor. But I was on board because it's like, okay, we'll stick with this Superman. But then they dropped him. So for young kids, okay, maybe the new Superman movie's great. But for me, it's like I spent a lot of time investing in Henry Cavill, and then you just said, okay, well, that's over. Okay, great. Well, my next point is that this Superman is too cartoony. This Superman has the opposite problem that the Dark Knight trilogy had. The Dark Knight trilogy should have been more cartoony, whereas this Superman should be less cartoony. Here's a title for the next Batman movie. Call it The Caped Crusader. And have him wear a blue costume like he does in the comics. Not just black all the time. Going on a tangent here, but The Dark Knight Rises was a terrible title. And what it should have been called was Night Rise. Because that would mirror the comic that it was based on, which was called Nightfall. So, but The Dark Knight Rises, it's the same title with one more word. Now, how could I have done it better? How would I have done it? I could have done this much better. As a person born in the 77 who fell in love with the first Superman movie at a very young age. Okay, firstly, you do almost like a shot-by-shot copy of the first Superman movie. It starts on Krypton. You see Jor-El, and you see the you see Krypton, and it's white. Everything's white, and you have it almost identical. That's how you start it. Secondly, you use John Williams' score unaltered. John Williams' score for Superman is perfect. It's super. So you just keep it as it is, and you stick with that. Next, you stick with the story that the first Superman from, I think it was 1977, established. Just stick with that lore. Consider that canon. Not the comic books. The 1977 movie. And so if you use that as a blueprint, right? Then you can pretty much do anything you want as long as you're still doing good storytelling. So my final verdict on the Superman movie, this new piece of shit, is that it sucked. But spoilers, I haven't even seen it. You don't need to see it. You just need to watch the reviews, and you just know what you're in for. I know what James Gunn does, and I want no part of it. We are living in an age where you can review a movie without even watching it. I mean, I'll probably watch it eventually, but I don't think, I really don't want to. It's just I don't want to see my favorite superhero doing dumb things, saying stupid lines, blah blah blah. It's desecrating. It's a desecration. A little factoid that any Superman fans might find interesting. So I'm born and raised in Toronto. And just about 10 blocks from me is a street called Joel Shuster Way. And Joel Shuster was one of the creators of Superman. He was a Canadian. And they call it the Daily Planet, right? That's the newspaper they got in Metropolis. But they originally wanted to call it the Daily Star. Because in Toronto, the main paper is what used to be called the Toronto Planet, and then it got changed to the Toronto Star. So the Daily Planet is the Toronto Star. It's the Toronto news. It's the Toronto newspaper. So Superman is Canadian.